Hey guys, Mike here from Lunch Money Comics with another comic book roundup video for you. This is where I show off all the cool comic books and other comic related things I've gotten over the last month or so that I haven't yet showed on the channel. And this is actually a pretty cool video because I have an incredibly diverse, eclectic mix of comic books and comic related things that I've got from all sorts of different places. So it's just going to be fun to see a lot of different stuff with a lot of different stories. So I'm pretty excited to share them with you. Before I do, you know the drill. Look at this picture right here and do those things. And then if you are on Instagram, look at this picture and do that thing. I have a lot to show you. So let's jump right into it with some Golden Age comics. And actually, they were a gift. So, a few months ago, a young man named Tyler reached out to me on Instagram, and he was not primarily a comic collector. He collected other things like cards and stuff, but he was interested enough in comic books that he found me on YouTube. And the reason he reached out was one of his elderly relatives had a huge comic book collection. Actually, they had like a burst pipe down in the basement, ruined some of the comic books. They pulled all the other ones out, and he said he didn't really know what he had because, he's not a comic book guy. And I said, well, I'd be interested in seeing what you have. Send me some pictures, not expecting much. And what he sent me was picture after picture after picture of Golden Age comic books. There were over 600 comics in this collection. A lot of DC, lots of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman from the 40s. He had pre-code horror, and it was an incredible, incredible find. So yeah, I started doing some research for him, telling him which ones were worth money, which ones weren't. But after corresponding for, a few weeks, Tyler had a really interesting thought. He said, you know what? Do you think other people would really like seeing this collection? And I was like, yes, they would. People love seeing old collections you find in a basement or an attic, especially one of Golden Age books that you don't see very often. So he was thinking of starting a YouTube channel just to show everyone these books and do it from the standpoint of someone who isn't a comic collector, someone who has no idea what they're looking at. So that's what he did. I gave him some advice on a YouTube channel, and he started one called Pockets Full of Comics. I will link to that down in my description. Guys, it's pretty wild just to see someone who doesn't know much about comic books pulling out like banger after banger from the 40s. It's a really cool thing to behold. He's done several videos already, and a lot of people have reached out to him. So as a thank you for all of that, Tyler sent me a little kind of like a thank you package. Not worth a ton of money, but pretty cool. He sent me a nice little letter along with 3 Golden Age books. So the first one is this. So this is Whiz Comics number 86. It's from 1947. Whiz Comics, of course, was by Fawcett Comics and was the premier vehicle by which we learned about Captain Marvel. The original Captain Marvel, Billy Batson, later known as Shazam. This isn't really a key issue or anything like that. It's just a really cool cover of Captain Marvel fighting the sinister Savannas. So one of his biggest arch rivals is Dr. Savannah, which you see right here, piloting this big robot. But evidently it's a family of Savannas. Right here, you see all his relatives who look kind of like him. Very cool, pulpy 1940s comic book, guys. The cover is detached. It's in terrible shape, but it's super cool looking, and I'm very happy to have it. The other one is another Whiz Comics. It's number 96. This one's from 1948. This is Captain Marvel in the battle between buildings. You see 2 buildings here kind of fighting and throwing things at each other. Again, detached cover, but very, very cool. But the third thing he sent me was actually a coverless book. And in his letter, Tyler said he couldn't figure out what it was. He thought I might be able to. Well, yeah, I was able to figure out what this was. Now, normally, guys, on more modern comic books, it's very easy. You can look at whatever's written on the bottom of like the first page, and you can see what kind of comic book it was. But for older books, that's not always there. Well, I knew right off the bat at the top, it's a World's Finest comic. And in these issues back then, which were thick, there were multiple stories. So there's a Superman story, a Batman story, and a lot of other stories that aren't really related to superheroes, like Western stories. And each one of these stories has their own name, right? Has their own title of the story. So all it takes is search World's Finest Comics along with a couple of those story names. And I found it right off the bat. It was World's Finest number 44 from 1949. Now, normally, that would have been the end of my research into this, but I did find one very interesting detail about this book that has to do with the Comics Code Authority coming out in 1954 and why this book had something to do with the reason that was created. So for those of you that are big comic book fans, I assume most of you who watch the channel are, I'm probably going to rehash a lot of stuff you already know about the Comics Code and all of what we call pre-code era of comic books, but by way of explaining why this book is significant, I have to kind of rehash a little bit of that. So first, let's start in 1954. Before that point, comic book companies could basically publish whatever they wanted. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was kid-friendly, that had lots of superheroes, but there was a lot of stuff that was geared towards adults, but there was no distinction between which ones were kids and which ones were adults when you buy them on the newsstand. Well, in 1954, a gentleman by the name of Frederick Wertham, who was a psychiatrist, German-born American psychiatrist, came out with a book called The Seduction of the Innocent. And this book basically detailed why the comic book industry was corrupting America's youth. Basically, all the taboo subjects of the time, violence, drugs, sexuality, these were things that were in comic books. They weren't regulated, and they were driving our children in America to juvenile delinquency. And you would think that wouldn't have been that big of a deal, except the book was incredibly popular. Lots of parents were concerned and bought this book, and actually led to a U.S. congressional hearing against the comic book industry. Long story short, guys, there's plenty of other YouTubers out there that know a lot more about this than me and that can really go down this rabbit hole. I'm just giving you the very bare bones basics here. The outcome of this was a huge pushback against the comic book industry, where a lot of comic book publishers went out of business. Even the ones that stayed in business, like EC, which was notable for all of the horror that they did, they were eliminated down to one title, just Mad. So you went from all of these sort of, kind of graphic depictions, lots of gore on covers, lots of violent things, lots of true crime. All those books went away. A lot of them were actually destroyed, and now we have a lot more PG-friendly, kid-friendly comic books for decades later. Of course, looking back at Wertham's book, yeah, his conjectures and his studies and his conclusions weren't very well founded at all. Certainly not scientific, but the damage had been done. Now, that is why people collect so much pre-code stuff, especially the horror, because, not only those books crazy, creepy looking, but they're very scarce. People destroyed them. There was a pushback against these types of comic books. Not many of them survived, and that's why they're so collectible. But there's even another sub-faction of books that are significant, and those are the ones that were mentioned in Wertham's book or in those congressional hearings. And this just happens to be one of them. Believe it or not, World's Finest number 44 has one panel in it that was referenced in Seduction of the Innocent. Happens at the end of the book. I had to find this panel, guys. I'll put it up so you can see what it is. Where Bruce Wayne comes home from a long day of, whatever he does during the day when he's not Batman. He's tired. He lays down on the couch, and Robin sits next to him. And evidently, this panel and other ones like it, Wertham and a lot of other people thought was suggestive of an inappropriate relationship between either an adult and a child or just two men. Again, we're looking at the early 1950s, late 40s here, guys. Obviously, looking back on it now in hindsight, it's incredibly tame. I think they were looking into it way too much. But because of that, this book actually has a little bit of historic significance that I can share with all of you. I have to say this, guys. I love finding things in strange and unusual places because I love the thrill of the hunt. But it's not just the comic books, the physical things that I get. Even this with antiques, this is true. It's the journey I take afterwards in researching them, right? I go down rabbit holes of finding out what is this thing. I get to learn everything about it, help educate myself for the next time I see something similar to that. And because of that, I love going down these intellectual rabbit holes and learning a lot. And I especially love that I can share some of this on the internet with a lot of you. So like I said, a lot of you who are comic fans know everything I just told you. However, maybe a few of you learned something you didn't already know. I thought that was super cool. Tyler, thank you so much once again for sending these to me and sending me down an informational rabbit hole. I learned a lot. I thought it was really cool. Definitely, guys, once again, down in my description, I'll put a link to Pockets Full of Comics. Check out his stuff and see what he pulled out of that basement because it's the stuff dreams are made of. So the next thing I want to show you is also a gift from somebody, although it's not a comic book per se. So I recently did a video where I found an old DC record, like a vinyl album, in an antique shop that had a whole bunch of DC stories. I actually have it right here. I picked this up. It was pretty cheap. I thought it was really neat. Well, what was so funny about it was when I brought it home, my wife, who I've been married to for 20 years and knows I like comic books, she says, "Oh, I have one of those." And she goes down to the basement and she pulls this out. She's had a Wonder Woman record her whole life. She got this when she was a kid. Used to listen to Wonder Woman stories. At no point in our entire relationship did she ever feel like she should mention this to me. I thought that was really funny. I thought it was a pretty funny bit on that video. Well, one of my viewers reached out to me and said he wanted to send me something. And guys, I say it all the time. You do not have to do this. Absolutely, I do not need anything other than for you guys to view the channel. That's all I ever ask for. But people find ways to get things to me. And that's how I got something from Adam. It says, "Lunch money, really enjoy the channel. Like your wife, I had this stacked away for decades. Add to the collection, Adam." And what did Adam send me? A Batman record. So the other two records I showed you were from 1975. So is this. This must have been a big thing in the mid-70s. And this is a record of multiple stories. Literally someone reading a comic book story out to you. Thought this was super cool. Adam, Thank you so much, man. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sending me this generous gift. I gotta listen to these guys. I have a record player. I haven't actually cracked into these, but could be fun to sit down and listen to them with the kids, and maybe my wife will go down a little bit of a memory lane listening to her old Wonder Woman record. So next up, I have a goodie bag here of stuff I got at a local comic book store. Now, I travel a lot for work, and I actually go into Boston a lot, and whenever I can, if I have time when I leave work, I will seek out a comic book store or like an antique shop I'd never been to before, if it's on the way home, and just check it out. And that's exactly what happened. I was recently in Boston, and I had some time to hit Bedrock Comics in Framingham, Massachusetts. Now, this is a store I've wanted to go to for a long time. They've been in business for years, and although it's a very small, physically small store, they have incredible comic books. If you go on their website, you can also link to their eBay store. The comic books they have in this place is unbelievable. It's just huge, gigantic comic book keys and original comic book art. It's pretty impressive. So I had some time, I stopped in. Yeah, it's a small place, and I went in, I met the owner, Jack, and he was sitting in this chair with a computer surrounded by just awesome comic books. Also, you know, there's a lot of back issues they have there. They have lots of, you know, cheap back issues and also cheap trade paperbacks. So an awesome store. I wasn't there very long, but enough to have a great conversation with Jack. He showed me some monster books they had recently got in. Super cool, guys. I'm pretty excited to go back to the store when I have some more time, but I did end up with a little goodie bag of stuff, and they're pretty fun. So the first thing I want to show you, man, I always say, if you haven't seen it before, pick it up. It's this. So this was on the rack with all these other good comic books. I always talk about how much I like The Rocketeer and Dave Stevens. Well, this is a 3D comic book with 3D glasses that look like The Rocketeer's helmet by Neil Adams, who's one of my favorites, and also a cassette tape. It's crazy. It's from 1991, the same year the movie came out. Guys, I've never seen this before. How cool is that? Still sealed in the bag. Could not say no to this. I thought it was awesome. It was $10. Pretty much bought itself. Couldn't say no to it, guys. Very cool. There was also a couple of boxes in the back full of cheap comic books, all around like $5. Yeah, I saw a comic book I'd never seen before, but had to have it, and it's this. This is X-Men #1 from 2019, so the Jonathan Hickman run, which I've read, and I thought I was familiar with all of those covers, but this is a variant cover I'd never seen before. Thought I was curious. It was $5. It's an homage to Giant Size X-Men #1. Couldn't say no. I bought it for $5, went in the bag, didn't think much of it until I got home. And I decided to look it up, and I realized why I hadn't seen it before, because this is a special convention exclusive. It was actually an exclusive at the 2019 Rhode Island Comic Con. I'm from New England. I've been to the Rhode Island Comic Con several times. I didn't go in 2019. I'd never seen this book. Not only that, I just mentioned how much I like Neil Adams. Neil Adams did this cover. Crazy, right? So, yeah, I had no idea. Perfect cross-section of my interests, guys. I absolutely had to pick it up. Very cool cover. And the last thing I got was a trade paperback. So there were boxes of cheap trade paperbacks, and there was a box, everything was like $10. And I always talk about how I like the darker DC characters. Well, here's something I absolutely had to pick up. It's this. This is the trade paperback of the 30th anniversary of Neil Gaiman's Sandman. So this is volume 1, it's issues 1 through 8 of Sandman. This is a highly acclaimed series that came out in 1989. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, of course, wrote it, and then, you know, art by a lot of people, but most notably Sam Keith, Mike Drinkenberg, and Malcolm Jones the third. Again, I love the darker DC stuff. This is definitely a darker title, was published by Vertigo, and then later by, you know, DC's Black Label, they call it now. I recently watched the television show they put out on HBO in 2022. I thought it was fantastic. Let me know down in the comments if you guys read that as well. Here's the thing. Even though I love the darker DC stuff, I have a confession to make. I've never actually read Sandman. Ooh, there it is. Yes, I admit it. I've actually never read Neil Gaiman's Sandman. I've always wanted to. I know a lot about it, but I've always wanted to, you know, jump into the story about Sandman, all his different names, Dream, Morpheus, all the different things they call him. I wanted to play around in this sandbox, just never got around to it. And I was recently at a comic book store with a good friend of mine, and we were looking at like an anthology of Sandman, and I just mentioned offhandedly to him, like, you know, I've never actually read that. And then, you know, after he picked his jaw up off the floor, he just berated me for like 5 minutes. How can you have a YouTube channel about comics and not have read Sandman? I know, which is why when I saw this for $10, guys, no brainer, had to pick it up. Also, it's full of lots of intros and forewords by people who worked on the book and stuff. So it's really cool. I think it's almost necessary reading. And yeah, I know that's my mea culpa, but I'm very happy to finally have this, guys, and have some new reading material. So I ask for your forgiveness. I will read this and get back to you. Let me know down in the comments if you're a fan of Neil Gaiman or Sandman. And yeah, actually, I can give you guys a pretty cool recommendation here. I usually say, like, these local comic book stores, if I recommend them, it's usually for people who live in New England, right? But in this case, like I said, they have a pretty good online presence, including an awesome eBay store. Pretty impressive stuff, including original art. So no matter where you are in the country or the world, definitely check out Bedrock Comics online. And if you are in New England, definitely worth a stop by. Like I said, I wasn't there very long, guys, but I got some pretty cool, interesting things, and I definitely have to go back soon. So the next comics I want to show you, I also got from a comic book store, this time my own LCS, His and Her Comics in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and I have a whole box to show you. Kind of, it's mostly empty. I was actually up there, I needed supplies, I needed a new short box, but when I was there, the owner Nishan told me that he got new stuff in that he put in the quarter boxes. So what this is, you know, they get collections in all the time, especially this year. It's been pretty fast and furious. All the really good books he takes out, puts them on the walls. The medium-ish books he puts in his back issues. But anything that can't fit, or is like anything under a couple dollars, you know, or less, because it's a small store, he has to get rid of it. He puts it in boxes on the floor that everything is 25 cents. And you can get some great stuff in there, guys. He said he got some new stuff in, especially X-Men oriented things. And, well, I found some comic books that are part of my 2024 collecting goals. I said I'd be collecting more of the X-Men tangential series, like New Mutants, X-Force, Excalibur, Alpha Flight, and X-Factor. So X-Factor was a series from the 80s that featured the original 5 X-Men of Cyclops, Jean Grey, Beast, Iceman, and Angel. And yeah, it was pretty cool. It had some notable first appearances in it, like Apocalypse became a major villain. Also, Angel notoriously became Archangel. And yeah, I figured I could finish it off a lot easier now when I can go through and pull these all out for 25 cents each. I got a ton of these, guys. I'm pretty close to finishing the run, and it cost me, I think, $9 to get all these books here. A great deal either way, guys. I love going through, you know, quarter bins like that. There were a few other books that I saw that were worth picking up for a quarter. We got a couple of, you know, X-Men books from the Jim Lee run that I didn't already own. We have Ultraman #1, first Ultraman in US Comics, and even a first issue of Amethyst, Princess of Gemworld. Kind of a silly character, but believe it or not, she actually did have an appearance on the Justice League Dark Team. Or at least in the story for a little while. So I had to pick it up, guys. So that's always fun. I love going through those types of boxes. But of course, I couldn't just get really cheap stuff. I had to look at the amazing wall books they always have there. His and Hers recently got in a huge collection of Silver Age Fantastic Four. And I saw a book on the wall that is one, honestly, I've wanted since I was a kid. And it's this. This is Fantastic Four number 30 from 1964. Of course, a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby creation. And this is the first appearance of this villain, Diablo. So Diablo is a pretty cool bad guy. He is actually a 9th century Spanish aristocrat who is an alchemist. He makes potions that sold his soul to Mephisto for prolonged life. He doesn't die. And in this issue here, the Fantastic Four inadvertently release him from his centuries imprisonment in like an old tomb. And he immediately seems kind of like a good guy. He starts making tons of potions that can do anything, include turn Ben Grimm into something a little bit more human. He actually ensnares Ben Grimm to kind of like be his bodyguard. But of course, he's a big bad guy and his potions don't last. And what is he trying to do? Take over the world. Of course he is. That's what these guys always do. And in this issue, the Fantastic Four have to fight him and imprison him yet again. So he's a pretty cool little villain, guys. And the reason why I've wanted this since I was a kid was, I talk about those Marvel trading cards all the time. Series 3 Marvel trading cards, there's Diablo right there. I clicked the first appearances of the characters on the card. First appearance, FF30. I absolutely had to get it. I was also recently on a live show with my friends, Absolute Gamer Nerds, where we played the comic card game. The idea is that we go through these Marvel trading cards. In this case, it was Marvel Series 3. We go through every single card and see who has the most first appearances. I won, and I have to thank Diablo for giving me at least one more point in that competition. The owner Nishan sold this to me for $30. It's really high grade. Very happy to add this to my collection. One more thing I want to add, guys, it come as a shock to some of you. I hope you're sitting down. I actually read my comic books. It's true. Not all of them. Certainly not all of them, but I love reading, particularly the Silver Age books. I can't not open these up when I get home, guys. As soon as I got home, I read this book. The 60s were a more innocent time. Honestly, guys, when you read these books, yeah, they were a little hokey. They're definitely oriented towards kids. I mean, honestly, Fantastic Four before the coming of Galactus is kind of tame stuff. It's not that good. After coming of Galactus, awesome. Absolutely awesome. But, I read it. It's silly, of course. He's a silly villain, but it's fun to see the Stan Lee story, and the Jack Kirby art. So I'm happy to get this book, guys, for $30 and have one more first appearance to add to my Marvel trading cards collection. All right, the books are getting better. These next three I actually got in a trade. So I have two friends named Josh and Larry. I've mentioned them on my channel in the past. They sell on Whatnot under the name of Magic Geeks. And a great thing about having friends who buy and sell comic books a lot, guys, is they get lots of stuff in and I get to look through it first. A lot of the comic books they get in, I offer trades for some of the stuff or even buy it outright. They recently got in a collection. I was over there while they were filming one of their Whatnot sessions, saw some comics I wanted. I had some trade books with me. After the show was over, we traded, and I got three awesome books. So the first one I'm going to show you is actually an upgrade. It's a book I already had, but I wanted a better copy, and it's this. So this should be obvious to any X-Men fans out there what this is. This is Uncanny XMen number 129 from 1979, a pretty important book in the Claremont Byrne run because of its multiple claims to fame. It's the first appearance of both Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde, two huge X-Men characters. Fun fact, by the way, their first panels are on side-by-side pages, so you see them at the same time. Also, first appearance of the Hellfire Club, and it's part one of the Dark Phoenix saga. So if you want to read that very famous, iconic storyline, you got to start with this one here. Like I said, I've already owned this entire Chris Claremont run. However, my copy of 129, I got a long time ago, and I couldn't afford a very nice copy, so it was pretty beat up. There were actually 2 tape pulls on it. I didn't do it. It came that way. I've been looking to upgrade it because it was by far the lowest grade copy I had in the Dark Phoenix run. So when I saw Josh and Larry had it, I said, I'll trade you my lower grade one along with something else. So that's what I did. I traded my older 129, which I got to hold side by side with this one to confirm, yes, this is better. I traded that and my old X-Men 100. By the way, that book I got in a yard sale for like $2 years ago. So definitely a solid and easy peasy upgrade for me, guys. I'm really happy to have this nice high grade number 129. But while I was there kind of searching the new collection they got in, I saw 2 more comic books I could not live without. I had my trade books with me. They went through and they saw a book they were interested in. It was X-Men 141, the first Days of Future Past, which I recently got from them an upgrade in an 8.0 slab. So I had my old version. I was going to sell it or trade it. They were interested in it. And what did I trade? I just talked about the Marvel trading cards. Here's another first appearance one. This is the Avengers number 28 from 1966, written by Stan Lee, pencils by Don Heck. And the cover is Jack Kirby. And this is the first appearance of the Collector. Now, I think a lot of people know who the Collector is because of the MCU. He was in the Guardians of the Galaxy and Infinity War, played by Benicio del Toro. He is a cosmic being that collects things from all over the universe, including living creatures. This is his first appearance. This is also the first appearance of Hank Pym as Goliath. He was known as Giant Man. Well, now he's back under a new name of Goliath with a new uniform. But mostly you get this because you want the Collector, and the Collector does have a card in that Marvel Series 3. Happy to get this book and get one more point in that game. Also, really high grade. I love the date stamp, by the way. Super cool. But believe it or not, of these 3 books, the one I'm most excited about is a DC comic. I know I'm not a huge DC collector, guys, so that might be a surprise, but I'm ecstatic to have this book. It's this. This is the Justice League of America number 21 from 1963. And the claim to fame here is this is the first time you see the Justice Society of America, which was formed in the Golden Age in 1940, the first time they meet the Justice League of America, which was first appeared in 1960. So because you get this first meeting between Golden Age and Silver Age, you have a ton of sort of first-time meetups. You get the first time Black Canary meets Green Arrow, who, you know, in the comic books, they have a long-time romance. Although, actually, this is the first Black Canary, so I guess that's his mother-in-law. Whatever, you guys know, they have a history between those characters. Also, the first time, this is really cool, you see the meeting between Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, and Hal Jordan, the new Silver Age Green Lantern. But the reason I mostly wanted this book was, it's the first Silver Age appearance of 2 Golden Age characters. First Silver Age appearance of Our Man and Dr. Fate. And it's that second one which makes me want this book so much. Because I've mentioned it many times on my channel, I like the darker DC stuff. I like the Justice League dark characters, and I collect all the first appearances of the characters on that team. So I have the first appearance of, you know, the second Swamp Thing, and of Deadman, and of Zatanna and Constantine. The problem is, a lot of characters in DC go back to the Golden Age, including ones on Justice League Dark. And I, quite honestly, can't afford More Fun Comics, number 55, first Golden Age appearance, first appearance at all, of Dr. Fate. So in those cases, I settle for this first Silver Age appearance. That's what I did with the Spectre back here, and that's what I'm doing now with Dr. Fate. So guys, this is a cool book anyways. I mean, look at it. It's an awesome comic book right here. Murphy Anderson cover, Gardner Fox story. This is a lower grade comic, which is why I was able to trade for it so easily. It does have a tear at the top of the book. Not very big, but it does go through the book. However, I brought it home. This book was pretty dirty. I was able to clean it up. I've learned some little techniques from my friend Jeff at Comic Spa. It looks great, guys. It glossed right up. It's beautiful. I buffed it. It looks great. Dirt literally came off this book. And you guys can't really see, but my top row has a lot of those Justice League Dark First Appearances. I have a perfect spot for this up on my top row there. Ecstatic to get this book. And like I said, I got both of these trading my lower grade X-Men 141. So all together, guys, pretty fun little stop to hang out with Josh and Larry, and 3 just banger book, guys. I'm really happy with the upgrades and the additions to the collection. So you heard me just mention Whatnot. Well, these last books I got on Whatnot. Now, listen, I actually don't shop on Whatnot very often at all. I only really know about it because my friends sell on it, and through them I've learned more about the process, and I bought some books for them just kind of for fun and help support them. But I've been a long-time lurker, guys. I just never actually pulled the trigger on anything. But I was recently talking with some other friends who told me that Whatnot is a place to go to overpay for comic books. And that was confusing to me. And they explained, you know, they go on at night, they go into these really awesome comic book sales where there's 100 people in the room, and all these comic books that are great go up for sale, and people get in a bidding war. And they just overbid on it just to kind of compete and flex their wallets, I guess. And because of that, they have a hard time getting good comics. Well, here's the thing. I have the exact opposite experience to that. And do you know why? Because I don't go on at night at all. I only go on during the day. So I actually learned this from my friends Josh and Larry. They started selling during the day because they were just getting into this business. They didn't want to go up against any competition. So they started kind of early in the morning selling books really cheap for like $1 or $2 until they got enough sales and reputation. They moved their show later. But I realized in watching them and other people on Whatnot in the morning, there's no one in those rooms. There's like 10 people. There's no competition whatsoever. And a lot of these people start their sales at like $1. You can get insanely good deals, and that's how I got all these comic books here. It was during the day. I was working. A friend of mine who was also browsing during the day told me to check out the really good Silver Age books, you know, these people were selling. So at lunchtime, I decided to walk around my neighborhood. I was working at home that day, had an earbud in. I was watching the show, saw some books pop up for $1 start or a $2 start. I just started buying them, and no one competed with me. Wait till I show you guys what I got and the prices I paid. Let's start with this one, probably the worst deal I got. This is the Defenders number 18. It's from 1974. Gil Kane cover, Sal Buscema pencils, Len Wein story. This is the first appearance of the Wrecking Crew. Kind of notable C or D list Marvel villains. You know, big and strong, but kind of dumb. Yeah, this is their first appearance. And yeah, I got this book for $4. $4. It's not in the best shape, but here's the thing, guys. That's the worst deal I got on this day. Next up, we have the Mighty Thor number 209 from 1972. Another Gil Kane cover, Jerry Conway writing, Sal Buscema pencils again. This is a very minor first appearance. First Demon Druid, this guy, who I know nothing about, quite honestly. The reason why this book jumped out to me, look at it. It is flawless. It's gorgeous. It is a gorgeous book. There's one little blemish up here in the corner. Price, $2. I think its starting price is $2. I bid, no one else bid. Wait till you see this one. Ready? The Mighty Thor number 150. This is Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Yeah, and this is a couple things. It's the origin of the Inhumans. It's a story about Triton, the Inhuman. But most notably, one of the main antagonists in it is Hela. This is Hela's first cover appearance. Her first appearance is Journey into Mystery 102, but this is her first cover appearance. Awesome Jack Kirby Thor cover. I've seen this book on the shelf of my LCS, on its wall books, for quite a bit of money. How much did I get this book for? $2. $2. My friend who was in there with me at the time was shopping. After I bought it, he said, you know, I wanted that book, but I wanted to see if you were going to get it for $2. I did. I got this for $2, guys. Crazy. But we weren't done. Yes, most of their stuff was Silver and Bronze Age stuff, but then they started putting up some of their slab books. They were just trying to see if they could get rid of them. And these guys, and I'm going to mention them now, they're called Finn Comics. These guys were excellent. I highly recommend them. I'll put a link down in my description to Finn Comics on Whatnot. They started showing off some of their bigger books. They have a comic book store, a brick and mortar store, and mentioned that the book I'm about to show you, they had at their store priced at $120. They thought they would just throw it up and see if anyone would bite. And the book they put up was this. So this is X-Men number 4 from 1992. This is part of the Jim Lee run. You know, Jim Lee and John Byrne story, Jim Lee art. And of course, this is the first full appearance of the X-Men bad guy, Omega Red. You see his tentacles right there. Very cool Russian mutant. Awesome. I really like him. I've always liked him since I was a kid. Now, listen, guys, during the comic boom, this comic book went for a little bit of money, but now it's subsequently crashed back down to earth. I find this book all over the place pretty cheap. I have several of them. Why would I want another one? Well, it's because of the grade. It's a 9.8. Sure, but I wouldn't want to spend a lot of money on this book. But here's the thing. They said they were selling this in the store for $120. They decided to put it up at half price to see if anyone would bite. So they put it up on Whatnot, starting at $60. And there was a countdown timer. I had just enough time to confirm what I thought to jump on eBay and saw that there was copies of this book in a 9.8 being bid on at the time up to $90. So I knew what this book was worth. I went in, swiped the thing, $60. No one else bid, and I won this for $60. Clearly, it's worth more than that. This is a bottom line. You know, this is like $80 or $90 comic book. Could be $100 on a good day, guys. Happy to get First Omega Red in a 9.8. Like I said, I'm not huge into slabs, but I couldn't say no for the price, guys. Yeah, I mean, all four of these comic books cost me a total of, $68. When you add in the shipping, which the shipping admittedly went up when they added the slab because it's bigger, ended up costing me $80 for all of these guys. I think this is worth $80, right? Exactly. So I got a great deal on all these, and that's been my experience on Whatnot. Hopefully I didn't give away my secret. Actually, I hope I do. Definitely, guys, if you like to go on Whatnot and you're looking for deals, go on during the day. You'll have a lot more success than at night. So head on down to the comments, guys, and let me know if you think I got a good deal on Whatnot. Also, if you do shop on Whatnot often, sound off in the comments and let me know what your experience has been like. Like I said, I'm pretty new to the whole format. But in my experience during the day, you get the best deals. And if you guys do go on during the day, maybe you'll see me lurking in the background. Whoa, having a hard time holding these all up. I'll make it quick. There you go, guys. There's everything I got in the last month or so I haven't shown on the channel. Some pretty cool stuff spanning multiple decades. Head on down to the comments and let me know which of my pickups you like the best. And do you think I got a good deal? What do you think is the best bargain I got? I honestly can't choose. That's it, guys. In the meantime, keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places. All sorts of places, because comic books are everywhere. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.